In the previous video, we had discussed regarding the login component, where whenever we are entering the username and password, for example, and click on login button, it will be logged onto the console where the object will be created with username and password. So now in this video, let's see how we can make use of this data and make use of authentication service in order to access this data which is provided by the form, so that we can create a service and process it. Okay, so let's do that now. So let's switch to Visual Studio Code. Inside our user folder, let's create a new service with name auth.service.ts. Okay, so what is this service used for? Whatever the data provided by the form to log in, we are making use of data and we are providing to this service in order to process that. So for all, like all the services, what we have to do first, we have to import injectable, right? So let's do that. First, let's import injectable from Angular core. Okay, it is, let's decorate with @injectable decorator. Sorry, @injectable. Okay, and let's create a class over here with name auth service. Okay, so what does this class do? Whatever the service which we are going to create now, we are going to create a method over here, that is login user method, which will take username and password. Okay, login user method which will take username and password as a parameter with type string and password of type string. Okay, and in order to log in, we are setting this dot current user equals, and here we are going to pass the data. So what will happen usually is we are going to create a local variable over here, that is local property of type iUser model. Okay, so whatever the model which we create, we'll make use of that model inside this service, and we will process the username and password whatever we are going to pass over here and authenticate the user. So before proceeding further, let's create a model for this service. So for this service, let's create a model, user.model.ts. Okay, inside user folder, let's create user.model.ts. And inside this model, what we are going to do, we are going to import this model inside this service, right? So whatever the required data over here should be used by this service. So we'll create an interface with iUser. Okay, and inside this we'll specify the required properties, that is id with type number, first name, this is of type string. Okay, then last name of type string, followed by username. Okay, this is also of type string. So we have the required skeleton for this interface whatever we have created over here. Let's make this use of this iUser interface inside our service, that is whatever the model we are going to create over here, we will import this model into the service that is inside our auth service. Okay, so let's import iUser over here. Import iUser, that is a model which we created so far, from which place /user.model. Okay, and here whatever the model I created, in order to make use inside our service, we are going to create a local property over here of type iUser model. Okay, we have already imported iUser, so let's create a local property that is current user. This current user will be of type iUser. Okay. Now we have the current user which we have taken as a local property inside our auth service, and we are making use of this iUser model which we created so far, this skeleton. Okay. Now inside this service, we have to specify the data over here which will be used for login, right? Usually we'll pass username and password to server by setting current user property, but for now what we are going to do, let's mock this for now. Okay, so inside this dot current user id, it's set for 1. We'll pass some values which we created the properties inside our model. Okay, for username it will be username, and for first name let's pass some value over here. Okay, and last name I'm going to specify some value. Okay, now next what we have to do, we have created login user method with username and password as parameters, and we are setting all these values for the model which we created so far, right? So let's add is authenticated which will return true if current user is set. Okay, that we have to do next, because we want to authenticate whether the user has been logged in or not. So to do that, let's create another method over here, is authenticated, is authenticated method. Okay, which will return whether the current user is set or not. Okay, this dot current user, that's it. So we have created a service which will take username and password as a parameter for this login user, and which will take these values for login, and we are going to validate it by making use of is authenticated method to see whether the current user is set or not. Okay, so we have created a service, we have created a model which will be used by this service. Next step what we have to do, we have to register this service as a provider. Okay, where we have to register, we have to think about it. Inside user.model.ts we should not do this. Why? Because this component will be used by other components as well. In our application we have this user component, right? So this user login component whichever we have defined so far will be used by other components as well. Since it is used by other components, we should not define inside user.model.ts. So we should define inside app.module.ts. Why it is like that means, once we register the service as a provider, that is inside our app module and not inside our user module, it should be used by other components, right? And we need not have to specify in both app as well as user modules, as providers will be shared by across the modules. See, whenever we are declaring inside app.module.ts, we are registering this service as a provider, it will be shared across the other modules as well. That's the reason we have to register inside app.module.ts. So let's do that now. So inside app.module.ts, let's include inside our providers array. Inside our providers array, let's provide auth service. Okay, here we have provided as auth service, and this will be imported automatically over here. And if you observe over here, once we are providing event list resolver auth service, we have to provide a comma over here, and we will register as part of providers array. So we have registered this auth service as part of providers array inside app.module.ts, so that it will be accessible across other modules as well. Okay, because this is the root module, right? So it will be shared among other modules as well. Now we have done so far by creating a user model which will be used by this service, and we are creating login user method, and we are checking is authenticated or not, whether this current user is set or not, and we are registered inside app.module.ts. So what next to do? whatever we have done so far, we have created a service and we have registered here. The next step what we have to do is inside login.component.ts, we have to make use of this auth service. Okay, whatever the service which we have created, we'll make use of this auth service, and we will take the form values of username and password and we'll pass it over there, and we'll check in our output. Okay, that we will see in our next video. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Please like, comment and share this video, and kindly subscribe to my channel in order to watch more videos. Thank you.